Welcome viewers to the channel, Dr. JWA, Theologist. The post-pandemic vaccine therapy journey, when the media stopped feeling like information and started feeling like atmosphere. In the previous episode, I examined how pandemic pressure entered family systems, private conscience, relationships, and self-censorship until many people no longer felt emotionally safe speaking honestly. But another force carried the pressure continuously into daily life: the media atmosphere itself. Because at first, people turned toward the media searching for clarity, updates, numbers, guidance, reassurance, explanation. And during genuine uncertainty, the instinct was understandable. People wanted orientation during chaos, but over time, many began experiencing something psychologically different. The media no longer felt like information, it felt like immersion, continuous immersion. Fear moved through screens morning to night. Case numbers, death counts, emergency banners, press conferences, alerts, warnings, predictions, compliance messaging, social condemnation, graphic imagery, behavioural instruction, and the nervous system rarely received recovery space. And psychologically, prolonged exposure to threat-based information changes perception itself. The body begins anticipating danger continuously, attention narrows, fear heightens, critical thinking weakens beneath emotional overload. The person stops consuming information neutrally, and they begin living inside atmosphere. And that distinction matters enormously because atmosphere shapes emotional reality more powerfully than isolated facts. And some households left televisions running all day, phones refreshed constantly, and people tracked infection maps obsessively. Conversations revolved around catastrophe continuously, and eventually many ordinary people experienced something deeply destabilizing. Reality itself started feeling mediated through institutional narrative streams. The stream became interpreter of reality. What was safe, what was dangerous, who was responsible, who was selfish, who was trustworthy, who deserved blame. And that concentration of narrative authority becomes psychologically powerful during emergency conditions, especially when media, government, corporate platforms, public health messaging, and institutional communication begin harmonizing into one dominant emotional atmosphere. The individual nervous system struggles, resisting total information saturation. Because modern authoritarian conditioning rarely requires citizens to read propaganda by force. It surrounds them with repetition until alternative perception itself becomes emotionally exhausting. And repetition changes consciousness. A repeated message starts feeling morally self-evident. A repeated fear starts feeling permanently present. A repeated emotional frame starts replacing independent evaluation gradually. And that's why many people now describe the pandemic years less like remembering information and more like remembering psychological immersion. And some people became addicted to updates. Some became emotionally paralyzed. Some stopped trusting their own judgment. Others become terrified of speaking publicly because online outrage cycles felt immediate and socially lethal. And many people began self-monitoring before posting, speaking, questioning, or even privately thinking through uncertainty openly. And another fracture formed quietly. The distinction between informing populations and managing populations started becoming psychologically blurred. And that recognition unsettles many people deeply afterward, because once media systems begin shaping emotional obedience through fear saturation, social shaming, repetition, narrative synchronisation, and behavioural pressure, public trust itself begins deteriorating beneath the surface. Some now distrust mainstream media automatically. Others distrust alternative media automatically. And many no longer know where stable truth feels located. And that confusion produces exhaustion. And exhausted populations become easier to direct emotionally. That historical pattern matters. Not because every journalist acted maliciously, not because every report was false. Fear was real, illness was real, but prolonged fear immersion changes populations behaviourally regardless of intention. Especially when uncertainty, morality, compliance, catastrophe, and institutional messaging merge into one uninterrupted psychological atmosphere. And therapy begins honestly when people are allowed to acknowledge the nervous system effects of prolonged informational saturation without immediately being mocked as irrational, extremist, or unstable. Because many people were not merely informed during the pandemic years, they were psychologically immersed inside continuous emergency atmosphere. And if someone still feels anxious, hypervigilant, emotionally exhausted, distrustful, mentally fragmented, or psychologically overloaded by media now, that reaction may not simply reflect weakness. It may reflect a nervous system that adapted to prolonged information threat conditioning under continual institutional emergency atmosphere. Because the pandemic did not only change public health communication, it changed how millions psychologically experienced reality itself. And I ask you to listen very carefully to my closing statement. The most powerful form of control was not only restricting movement, it was surrounding populations with uninterrupted emotional atmosphere until fear, compliance, and reality itself began merging together psychologically. I'm Dr. JWAU, theologist. Like, subscribe to encourage me, comment to educate me, and share the video to help somebody else. I'll see you in the next episode when digital passports and permission systems normalize conditional human partation.